Hi everybody, it's Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Equine Sanctuary. The video footage you're about to see was filmed on February 19th and February 20th, 2020. And I wanted to provide you some simple and easy ways to provide shelves and ledges for your snakes that are likely to utilize them. In these shots, you're going to see some very inexpensive and simple ways that you can provide ledges and shelves for your snakes without going to very much trouble at all. I hope it's helpful for you and that you enjoy the footage you're about to see. I use a lot of tubs, crates, laundry baskets, and cardboard boxes. This is Zahia. She's a 2017 Morelia bredli. And as you see here, she does have shelves that I have installed in her enclosure. These are adhesive shelves, which she uses quite often. But today she's using her humidity hide, which is a tub containing damp sphagnum moss, and it has a hole in the top. But today she's using it as a ledge or a shelf. And it's great when things in the enclosure can have dual purposes. So not only does this act as a humidity hide for her and just a general source of humidity in the enclosure, even if she doesn't get inside it, but it also can double as a resting area for her. And so if you're not able to install ledges or shelves in your enclosure, or if your enclosure hasn't come with those already, you can certainly put a tub or a bin in the enclosure and let the animals that like to perch, that like to drape, that like to rest up high off the ground on ledges and shelves, use the tub or other container as a shelf or a ledge. This is X452. She's a 2018 Morelia bredli. And as you can see, she is up like 3 levels up. So she's got a hide on the bottom that's a cardboard box turned upside down. She's got an actual plastic hide, and then she has a humidity hide. On top of the humidity hide, there's a hole for her to get in and out of. And then she has a coconut hide on top of that. And this is her favorite place in her enclosure to rest, to hide, to be. This is where she is most of the time. And so she really prefers an elevated space to rest on. And during the day when she's sleeping, she squishes her whole body inside that coconut hide and she sleeps in there. But this is another way that you can provide ledges, elevated areas for them to rest on and hide in without actually having to install shelves or perching. This is Mrs. Peel, and she woke up when I opened her enclosure, but she was resting partway on that white ledge and partially on top of her humidity hide. So as you can see, she had draped herself across more than one elevated surface, and that is pretty common for her to do. She's not on the ground very often, but this just illustrates another way that you can use tubs and other items, whether cardboard or plastic, to make elevated areas for your snakes so that they can rest off the ground. This is Ronans Enclosure, and Ronan is a 2018 Morelia bredli. And as you see, he's got an enclosure within his enclosure. So the smaller enclosure is a 12 by 12 by 18, and it is the enclosure that travels with us when Ronan does outreach. And so inside that enclosure, he has a shelf, he has a log, he has foliage, he's got a water dish and a hide. But half of the enclosure can be opened up. And so when we're at home, I just set that whole smaller enclosure inside his large enclosure, and he can climb in and out of it. He can climb around the outside of the larger enclosure, which I've provided some perching in and a humidity hide and water. But his favorite space to be is actually on top of the smaller enclosure, which he ends up using as a ledge. And that is where I find him most of the time when he's resting and when he's not spending time moving around. So there's all kinds of options for you. If you want to add elevated hides, if you want to add elevated areas for your snakes to climb on and rest on without having to permanently attach things to your enclosure. This is Lais Enclosure. She's a 2017 Morelia bredli produced by Nick Mutton. And I do have several shelves and ledges in her enclosure. Some of them are attached by adhesive strips, and then some of them are magnetic ledges and shelves. But I also have in here just like an upside down storage crate. And then I have her humidity hide on top of it. And on top of that, I have a cardboard box. And I find her resting sometimes and or hiding in all of these different levels. At the very, very ground level, she's got a traditional plastic hide, which you can see she's partially in right now. But yesterday she was all the way up top, resting on this ledge here. And so she really utilizes all of the space and all of the different enclosure furnishings in her enclosure. I just really want to emphasize that if you don't have the ability to install ledges and perches, either permanently or in a temporary way with adhesives or magnetics, that there is nothing wrong with stacking things up the way I have here that still allows your animal to climb up high and rest on what to them is just another ledge or shelf. This is one of our male Brettles pythons, Boreth, and this is an example of something that he really likes to use. And it's just a really cheap plastic stool that's made for little kids. I think we paid less than $10 for it. And we've put it in his enclosure and are able to sit his water dish underneath it. And he spends the majority of his time resting on this. But we also have a couple of other tubs in here that he's able to both get inside and rest on top of if he likes. And then in the corner, we have a litter box that's meant to be for cats, and it's meant to sit in a corner of a room. And we've just turned it upside down. And this way he can lie on top of it, as well as use it as a hide if he gets underneath it, which he doesn't do very often, but it's there for him if he wants it. The thing he utilizes the most is this blue stool. But this is just another example of how you can create shelves and ledges without having to do any permanent or temporary changes to your enclosure walls. This is another one of our male Morelia bredli. His name is Telemachus. And as you can see, he's resting on top of his humidity hide, which is on top of a regular ground hide, which he doesn't use very often. He uses his humidity hide both inside and outside quite often, and it is sitting underneath one of his heat sources. And so I find him resting on this as a ledge for basking a lot of the time. The other thing I wanted to show you with his enclosure is this other tub that I have in here that he utilizes as a ledge. Has a hole on the top that he can climb down into the tub through. And then I've got holes in the sides, and inside the bottom of the tub is water, and I've got a rock in there and some fake vines. He likes to swim. And so in addition to his regular water dish, I've created this tub that he can both get inside and use as a swimming pool, and that he can get on top of and use as a ledge or shelf. And both his humidity hide and this other tub were just a matter of cutting a couple of holes in and sticking inside his enclosure in their entirety with the lids on and everything. I think the tub he's sitting on now was $1, and this other tub was a little bit more expensive, but you could really use any kind of tub like this for a swimming pool or for a shelf or ledge. But I just wanted to give you a couple of other ideas of things that I use that the animals really utilize a lot in order to stay up off the ground and drape or bask or coil up onto what to them is a ledge or shelf. I mean, the animal is not going to perceive resting on this elevated surface any different than they're going to perceive resting on an actual ledge or shelf that you attach to the enclosure wall. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. If you have any questions for me, you can always reach me on Facebook or YouTube, or email me at behavioreducationllc@gmail.com. As always, please remember to be kind and love your animals.